I'm kind of like I think people like my because I'm kind of a unique kind of character.
And I have
You just see how games and possessions are more intense, how they mean more.
I'm not putting him on.
I think the U.S. is going to obviously win.
Bonjour and welcome to Nothing But Respect, something Rudy Gobert deserves. This is a podcast. I am Harry Krinsky. I am joined by Defector staff writer Patrick Redford. Patrick, how are you? You're in the woods.
That's right. I'm in. I'm ending my off season in a cabin, doing a block of altitude training. Podcasting at 6,000 feet above sea level. It's not easy. It tests the lung capacity, but my hematocrit was getting a little low at sea level, and if I want to get these takes off at a sort of like higher clip and raised intensity, like you have to put in the work. We see every NBA player is like in these runs and stuff. This is sort of our version of that, I think.
The Rico Hines off-season playoff runs, yeah. I'm told that you haven't spoken to anybody in 66 hours, and they've just been shuttling food through a little prison-like a gate that you've been eating and kind of thinking about why you might be the most hated center in the history of basketball.
Exactly, yeah. Just alone with these thoughts in the dark, just kind of grinding, like honing this. In my mind, there's like a diamond, like a 3D diamond rotating very slowly. And every minute I spend in the dark, it gets like a little shinier. The image becomes a little more real. And that's what I'm going to hold on to when I get laughed at by both my teammates and the opposing bench when I shoot 3 for 12 in free throws in a game my team loses by 4.
We are, of course, talking about Rudy Gobert, basketball's most misunderstood string bean. But before we get into Gobert, we got to talk about, honestly, there were 2 pieces of breaking news that are perfectly within our beat, happening one after another. The first was last night, which is Shannon Sharp. Though, I mean, we'll have a conversation about that. Shannon Sharp went Instagram Live, put his phone on the bed, and then started having sex with somebody, and the sounds of him groaning were caught on Instagram Live, and that obviously was hilarious, went viral kind of all over. What were your thoughts on the sex tape or the audio, the podcast, the first sex podcast?
Well, I 2 thoughts. One is sort of a kind of, he breaks a lot of the Dogman 95 style rules of Instagram Live sex tape leagues, like just visually speaking. It's just kind of what appears to be like a dark wood grain surface, but there are some slight movements and vibrations. And my other take, unfortunately, Meek Mill, he kind of got there before me, so I'm just gonna have to ask the same question that he sort of answered, which is, was Unk in his bag? Hit the comments below.
Great question. And I gotta say, just zooming out about Shannon Sharp, he is so funny. Like, he's like one of the funniest pundits. I love any time he's on a podcast, the Ocho Cinco After Dark, like any of that stuff. I'm not saying I'm tapping in for 3 hours or even like 1 minute of him talking to the old guy who loves Dallas, but his greatest hits from a soundbite perspective, this included, are goated. Like, he's so funny.
Yeah, and kind of at this perfect uncanny level where you're not exactly sure how intentional it is, which I think is a pretty key element to being a pundit at this level, especially in something like sports, which is like sort of inherently silly. Like, the stakes are just kind of always sort of low. And I think he was actually the perfect person to match Skip Bayless's freak, in the sense that like he wasn't ever going to like get bogged down in any of the like debates he was trying to have. He was just kind of do his own thing and scream over the top of him, which I think is the energy you need to have if you're in a room with someone like that.
It's true, and much of what Shannon Sharp says can be interpreted in 3 simultaneous ways. One, as like complete, like him just being stupid, laughing at him. The other is him being like incredibly funny in this sly way. And then the third is like a sort of weird performance art. And it is really hard to tell which one it is at any point, which I agree is the secret sauce of like a high-level sports commentator.
Yeah, it's kind of like you see in Kendrick Perkins the sort of protean form of the Sharp, where it's like Perk, for better but mostly worse, his takes are his own, which is like sort of admirable, except he feels this weird like reflexive need to defend them because he kind of knows they're stupid, whereas Sharp understands like the rule of this sort of phylum of broadcasting, and takery is just like get the takes off, never apologize, never back down, just stay in your bag sexually and broadcastfully.
That's so true, and nothing is better highlights that than how he handled the sex tape release, which is just going on his podcast later that day and being like, yeah, man, Instagram Live. I didn't even know. I don't know about going on Instagram Live. I don't know what that is. I don't know. Was I having sex with that woman? Yes, I was. And then Ocho Cinco's like, Unc, you are out of breath. And he was like, let me tell you something. I was. Like, that is genius.
Yeah, and to hawk dick pills in the very same podcast too. I mean, my first reaction when I saw that is this is an op, but I think it's more just like he understands, he knows the game. Like he understands you got to just never stop pivoting, you know?
Completely. It did get me thinking about sort of the dick pic in sports. I had a really funny conversation with I will say, somebody who could be loosely defined as a celebrity a few years ago.
Oh wow.
We were talking after some recording or something, and he was telling me the story about a dick pic that he had, where he
of his own penis.
Of his own penis. Yeah, he sent a dick pic sometime, and then 2 or 3 years later, he is just on Twitter, and somebody tweets at him a picture of his dick, and is like, "Hey, is this your dick?"
Great question.
He sees it. He's immediately sure it's his penis, as we all would, right? And just replies, "Nope, not mine." And like that was him explaining how to handle a leaked dick pic. And it I don't know if that's really the template, but it did get me thinking about how it basically doesn't matter if your dick gets if you're not doing anything untoward with your penis, it pretty much doesn't matter if it's out there unless it's like really small. I can't imagine a situation where it's like, who cares if Shannon Sharp's dick's out? He's not losing a job. He's not even going to get fined. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you can really map the arc of how, this is a clunky ass phrase, but the arc of dick pic reception maps very cleanly onto like the rise and fall of like the social internet and blogs as like a sort of world moving force. Like in the early days, it's like, here's Greg Oden's dick and it's going to do 3 million views on Deadspin, which is like, every part of that is a crazy ass sentence, where it's like, Shannon Sharp goes on Instagram Live, being in his bag, and then instantly pivots to like this other podcast he has with a guy to try to sell dick pills. And there's no element of scandal to it whatsoever. Like, isn't that
really true?
Like, imagine telling that to someone 10 years ago that like, now it'll just be thought of as like a PR move rather than like it's damaging to have your dick out there, you know?
Completely. And it's even shifted where I was looking at some old famous sex tapes, and I was looking at sorry, I wasn't looking at the sex tapes.
You were in the lab doing research.
Yes, I was looking at the reception to the sex tapes. The Paris Hilton one, and I was looking at the Kim Kardashian, the release of other, and both of those, it's a little bit of a gray area around who, Ray J claims that Kim Kardashian released it. Kim's like, that's not what happened. With Paris, the folks who put it out claim that it was like totally on board, and Paris was like, at the time, claimed that wasn't the case. I haven't followed up on the specifics of all of that, but the point is that there was this real scandal, to your point, about all of this stuff, and real like kind of sexiness and or not sexiness, but like scandalousness and danger and like live wiriness of the release of these sex tapes, it springboarded them into a giant level of fame. I would say with Shannon Sharpe, it pretty much works the opposite, where the only people who are going to see Shannon Sharpe or hear Shannon Sharpe laying it down are already fans of him or already followers of him. It's like there's going to be no breakout of any kind.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the idea that a sex tape could break contain out of its own little silo, I think is pretty, like, the idea that a sex tape could break contain out of its silo seems pretty unlikely to me, unless it's someone of like Donald Trump level fame. Like if it's one of the, like,
right,
the 15 most famous people in the country, maybe, but like, yeah, like everything is so kind of balkanized now that it makes sense that this would stay within its ecosystem, right?
Totally, but it does bring up the question we have to ask, which is, was this a leak? Did he call the paparazzi on himself, so to speak?
So to make I don't think I believe this, but the affirmative case hinges on a couple things. One, how quickly he was able to just hop on the mic and make it a bigger story. Two, the hawking of the dick pills on said podcast. And kind of three, like on the podcast, in like the quotes he's given, there's this kind of pretty dark undercurrent of like, well, everyone knows I'm not gay now. Like it's really bad and fucked up to just instantly pivot this to be like, by the way, just so you know, like to bring homophobia in a place where it's like, there's no reason to do any of that. So that's the case for it being the leak. What do you think? And can you make the opposite case?
The only other thing I'll add to the case for it being a leak.
Oh yeah, please.
It is the timing of this. Like you're telling me he accidentally went on Instagram live and released his sex tape week 1 of the NFL season. That's when he decided to do it. And then the other thing is, like, you're telling me that Shannon Sharpe doesn't know how Instagram Live works. Like he's like a social media, he's a prolific social media user. Though I will say, having been, I'm in the streets helping people of his age set up technology. So this is probably the argument for it not being real. This is the argument for it being a true accident. Is like people of his age, especially famous people, have a incredible learned helplessness around how to use their technology at a high level, where they like look at the phone does one. It's like your dad or your mom times. It's like if your dad or your mom had handlers since they were 11. That is the level of like technological helplessness you're with. So that's one of them. Probably the other is it's just not. It's such a random, kind of like instantly mimetic thing that I'm like, what does he really have to gain? Like Shannon Sharpe seems like he's doing fine. Like he doesn't need to release his sex tape. He could literally just be like, Sam Darnold's the best quarterback in the NFL or whatever the fuck he would say.
Yeah,
and it
probably
would be,
get more engagement.
Right. So I'll give him. I think it was probably fine. I don't think he did it. One other piece of news we got to hit that just really late breaking. I texted it to you right before we hopped on.
Oh yeah, this is true.
It is an awesome. I'll just read this to you. Bakari Sellers, a longtime close ally of Harris, says her planned brainstorming warms the spirit of every Democrat and should be followed up with non-traditional appearances. He wants Harris to sit with star podcaster Bill Simmons, who founded the Ringer Network and has a huge following among sports and pop culture devotees. Blah, blah, blah. And then he went on to say he should go on with Paul Feinbaum to talk, I guess, college football, whatever. Do you think a Simmons-Harris podcast is going to happen?
She should do it. I think she has a lot to gain. Bill obviously has a lot to gain. Although it's interesting to think, like, I think it was Obama the second time around where that was like the podcast campaign. Like he went on Marin and it was this very clear strategy of we're going to do sort of new media. And we've now seen Trump go on the Nelk Boys. We've seen Theo Vaughn tell him about doing cocaine for a minute on that podcast. And one of the most surreal clips I've seen. And so I guess that honestly maybe builds a negative case because maybe she's going to try to distinguish herself from Trump going on all this weird shit. Although maybe they would think Bill Simmons is like this adult in the room person, and you could really humanize yourself through him. I mean, you're the bigger Simmons head of the two of us. Like, I bet you have more complex takes here.
Well, I guess I have a few thoughts. One is in comparison with Trump, to your point, there's just no way she will be funnier or more kind of like dynamic than Trump is on any of these things. And you know, my sense in general with Trump, especially after this debate, is he is slowly kind of like descending into ironically a sort of Bidenian madness, where like he's like losing track of what he's saying, but he is still like unbelievably funny at times, and like he says things that are just so absurd and hilarious that I don't and like off the cuff or whatever that I just don't think Harris can get to that level. And if she does on a podcast, it'll almost read as like forced, you know, hello fellow kids vibe.
Also, like, she's like not doing interviews generally, like even like the very stage managed, like with the team there. And so, you know, a free flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects would be quite the departure for her.
Totally. I think the Simmons angle is funny because he generally is like, I would say he mostly comes from the Michael Jordan school of Republicans buy sneakers too. Like, I think he is generally, you know, like liberal in whatever
definitely
modern boomer sense of like of that means. You know, how liberal can you be if you have $300 million and squash your unions? But like, you know,
very
liberal,
I think, honestly.
Right, I guess, yeah, you can be fairly liberal in terms of mainstream politics. You're right, but the part of me is like, what does he have to gain by having Kamala on? Sure, like especially if Kamala does like a podcast car wash, does Simmons want to be like stop 3 on the Kamala journey? But at the same time, now that this report is out, and I think this is actually kind of interesting, is like he's sort of screwed either way, because if Kamala doesn't go on and there's some report that Simmons like turned down Kamala Harris, now it's like, okay, well, you're an enemy of you know, the established Dem class or whatever.
This is something that definitely we shouldn't spend too much time on because it warrants longer discovery, but I think Simmons is actually a pretty good avatar for like the like vaguely liberal, because he knows it's kind of what he should do, guy of his age. Like he's been complaining a lot about Gavin Newsom and the big California politicians in this just sort of like vague grievancy way that maps onto like how kind of like all the right wing and all the certain like rich guys of a certain type will just amorphously complain because they know they shouldn't say what they actually think, but like want to just get it out there that they think like Newsom is doing a horrible job, like in this totally like unspecific way.
Totally. That it could read it equally as a specific salient ideological political difference, or like he's got to get his ducks in a row. Like it could exist as both.
And like the clear thing he's saying is like, I have to see homeless people and still pay property tax, which is like every rich Californian's like complaint. Like he should just move to San Francisco, honestly. Like this is just so all in podcast coded of him, except he's not actually saying it.
Dude, which is more likely, Kamala on Simmons or Simmons on All In? And which would do more for the American people?
I think Simmons on All In. I really that I would actually really like that, because it would give me like for the first time in a long time like this completely guilt-free ability to root for Simmons in that case. Like he's unambiguously the good guy.
I mean, that just talking about like must see pods, that would be up there with the one of my top. That or like even Simmons on, okay, then we'll cut off Simmons, but Simmons on like the Lex Friedman podcast doing like 4 hours on microcomputers.
Oh wait, check this out. You know who actually leaking a dick pic would be like the best possible PR? Not Bill Simmons, Rudy Gobert.
Oh, it's funny that you say that. Yes, that could be good. First of all, great transition, obviously.
This is, podcast moves.
A Rudy Gobert. I mean, God, so much to say about a Rudy Gobert dick pic. Here's what I'll say as a teaser is my biggest problem, I think, with if Rudy Gobert were to release his dick pic would be the proportions of the dick. Like, knowing him, it would be at some fucked up Dutch angle that's deeply unsettling. The comments would be like, "Yo, that shit's kind of skinny" or whatever.
It's hard to imagine him doing it in a way that would accomplish, even getting the reaction of the Shannon Sharp thing. I think maybe this is a way to synthesize these two segments, but it's the dick pic is sort of this vehicle. The reception of the dick pic is a vehicle through which people can sort of just get their opinions and general feelings out about the person. The dick pic itself or the sex audio is totally immaterial to the reception of it. It is just this this perfect prism through which takes can pass.
Right. Yes, it's well put. All right, you wanted to talk about, or you texted me about Rudy Gobert initially. Talk to me about why are we talking about Rudy, the most hated NBA player, or most hated probably future Hall of Famer ever?
So I just find him going through the offseason, there's certain types of content that comes up. I hate to use that word, but content that comes up. It's either Chet Holmgren is in a run with KD and Lethal Shooter is, in the bog with this guy, shooting in a swamp, or it's someone goes on a podcast and says something wild. But then there's also this eternal hatred of and laughing at Rudy Gobert, which I think has really hit some high points last spring, but kind of has not died down. And I find the way that he has remained this eternal laughing stock for a certain type of NBA guy to be really fascinating. And the fact that it's still going on, that Shaq is out here making fun of him, that he had the Olympics he had. I just find him this very interesting figure in NBA, less as a player and more as a discursive person. And the fact that he keeps fighting against this reception and trying to, for lack of a better term, clear his name is, I find it faintly tragic.
It's totally tragic. And on a recent Zach Lowe pod, Zach was kind of just as a throwaway line, he was God, Rudy can't catch a break. He did the COVID thing, and he now he's getting benched for Gobert, for Wemby, and all this stuff. And I don't think that's quite right. It was just a throwaway line. It's not that Rudy can't catch a break. He has had exceptionally bad luck, even just to the fact that he is now on a team with Towns and the most swaggy guy in the NBA, Anthony Edwards. He definitely has had external forces kind of exacerbating whatever demons he has that make him more hateable. But I completely agree that he is an avatar for something larger now. He is it is the defining thing about him is that he is hateable.
Yes.
Way more than anything he has done on the court is it'll be oh yeah, everybody fucking hated that guy. It's crazy.
And I think the thesis we will build towards in this segment is basically he is kind of the sin eater for a lot of these strains of NBA evolution that I don't want to keep saying NBA players of a certain type, but essentially the Kobe Bryant revanchist wing of NBA discourse loathes but can't always articulate why. And those two I think are the analytics data boyification of the NBA, and also this strain of worry over okay, all the best MVPs, all the best players are like kind of not American anymore. Like Jokic is one of these MVPs. You have Giannis and Luka, yada, yada, yada. And I think there's some uncomfortability at that. And in a way that people don't really want to say directly. You don't just want to be like, it's bad that there are foreigners at the top of the NBA, but like, I think it does make some people uncomfortable. And I think through Rudy, you can launder both of these takes. And because he is French and corny at the same time, and you're allowed to be one, but not both, apparently, he's just like this perfect avatar for it.
Totally. I think one of the places I want to start with building this case, the case of Rudy as the most hateable, is something that I when I was thinking about this, I was trying to sum up this sort of like aesthetic issue with Rudy Gobert. And one of the things that I started thinking about Rudy is he is one of the only players, and Shaq said this on Shaq didn't say what I'm about to say, but he is one of the only players who other NBA players will be like, if I was that big, I would be doing that, which is so uncommon in the NBA because everybody is freakishly tall and 6'7", and even, so people aren't really thinking like that. But Anthony Edwards had this thing where he was like, if I was 6'7", 6", whatever, I would have 20 points. And Shaq said, if I was, he's 7'6", of course he's going to block a bunch of shots. It's this, it's a blow. I mean, but it's one of those things where it's like, it probably is kind of true. Like, of course, being tall and having freakishly long arms and legs helps. But at the same time, it is a, it's discrediting whatever other stuff Rudy does. But what it builds to, in my opinion,
like Boban is not an all-star, right?
Right, exactly, right. And neither is, plenty of really, really tall people. Like there's plenty of super tall, not that successful. Daniel Gafford is probably 7'1", and like he's not a defensive player of the year, know.
Yeah.
But the thing that Gobert has, which I feel from my playing days when I was the basketball players who would infuriate me the most as a point guard would be people who have what I would describe as nerd feet. And when you watch Gobert, it's super on display whenever Luka cooks him, and Steph, like that famous example is he has an awkward looking gait. It is effective, like he kind of can get to where he needs to get, but like his legs and arms flail. He does not move athletically gracefully. He moves sort of effectively, but because he's, again, so tall and can recover. But it was funny. I was on Reddit watching somebody defend Rudy Gobert, and they were posting a bunch of clips of like Rudy Gobert being an amazing one-on-one defender and whatever. Some stats back it up that he is, whatever. And there was this clip of Luka, and this clip is posited as a look how good Gobert is, but Luka is making Gobert look silly. He's like jab step, turn around, Gobert's like foot is backwards, whatever. And then Rudy makes this amazing recovery and ends up blocking the shot. But just from like a hooper pill perspective, it's like, dog, you got embarrassed. Yeah, you got your fucking long ass finger on the ball, but like you got cooked. And I think that's going against Rudy.
Yeah, like I think a lot of that is like when he does get cooked, it looks so bad. Like the Luka game winner last year, where he just put Rudy on an island, and I think he had him backwards at one point. It's like, okay, that could have happened to anyone. It is one play, but like there is something to like the psychic damage of just looking that goofy, especially when you are that tall, right?
Totally. And if you're already, what it does just on a visceral level is it's like, this guy's not good at basketball. Like this guy is not naturally good at basketball in a way that in a way that is hard to overcome. Like if you have a knee-jerk reaction to somebody being a scrub and you talk to them for 20 minutes, they end up being a cool guy, you might still leave being like, yeah, but the fucking, I don't know. They got the Pod Save America t-shirt on. Like, I don't know. I know the takes were fine and he seems nice. He had a firm handshake, but it's like, he's got a backwards hat on and a Pod Save America shirt on. It's hard to overcome just like, I'm trying to give this guy a noogie.
Yeah. Like he is so lucky that Anthony Edwards is his teammate, because if those two guys were opposite each other, Ant would make a point of just trying to kill him over and over more than probably any other player in the NBA.
Yeah, it's true. And the other kind of cousin to this, so you got this thing, you've got this awkward looking guy who's very tall, seemingly profiting from being tall, which again, you can't fucking control. Followed by an interesting thing that I read in the McMahon profile, which I thought was very good and very kind of like, it was a little hokey at the end, like being like, and then he learned to like block the haters out. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
But I thought generally the reporting was really good and kind of interesting. Was Rudy being like, I bring a unique set of things to the basketball court, which is true. He brings a really, really unique set of things, but it's not. It helps you in a specifically big data efficiency pilled way.
Yes.
Like he contests and makes shots 5% more difficult or 5% more likely to happen at the rim in a way that like proves out over a 100-game season. But those differences are marginal, like tiny on a game-to-game basis.
Especially if you compare him to a much cooler center who is like 4 or 5 inches smaller, like who can do that like a little bit worse, but like looks cooler and whose feet are normal. You're going to say like DeMarcus Cousins or whoever is like the cooler and better player, right?
Completely. I was thinking about Dwight Howard as a foil to this, because Dwight Howard was also just like a dominant rim protector people were scared of, but he wouldn't get his finger on the ball. He would fucking punt the ball. And it looked like cool as fuck when he did it.
And he was so coordinated too. Like his offense was the same thing, just a sort of like one dribble dunk kind of stuff, but like he could like spin around guys and like do cool stuff. Whereas Rudy at all times seems to be falling over, and his hands are so big. It looks like he looks like a child playing with like a Nerf ball or something. Like it's just, there's something kind of like gauche about it almost.
Totally. And this is, I don't know this. I have never been an NBA player, but my theory about what's going on in an NBA player's head is they go up on a Rudy Gobert shot. Rudy kind of challenges it in this very unique way that he does, where he like throws his body vertically into you and makes the shot a little bit more difficult. You miss the layup, and the NBA player, the Anthony Edwards, the Steph, the whoever, is running back on defense being like, that was fine defense, but what really happened was I missed the shot.
Yeah.
Like he didn't change anything there. I just happened to miss the shot. And that ends up being, if they're even thinking this, they're wrong, right? He is obviously, the data bears out, making it more difficult. But I can totally see this perspective of like, yeah, well, if I just like lock the fuck in, I'm making that layup next time. And thus, like, he's not that good.
Like clearly he can affect me, but not in like this determinative way. Like the ball is still in my hand. Like I am the one who controls this outcome, really.
Exactly. He is not like inflicting his will on the game. And there's this funny disconnect because every pundit is like, Rudy Gobert is inflicting his will on the game. But then I suspect that there's this disconnect where NBA players are like, no, he's not.
Although like
he's not.
I think the thing with him that actually, the only thing about his game that actually bothers me, and this is crazy to say about a guy who averaged 13 boards last year, is like he should be a better rebounder for how big he is. Like I'm a big rebounding guy. I think it's like, besides passing, my favorite thing to watch and track because it's like, it's not always obvious like who the good ones are. Like someone like Pajemski is like a crazy rebounder, and he's pretty athletic. He's like got long arms for his size, but really it's just like he knows where to stand, and it's really cool to watch a guy operate like that. And Rudy's rebounds are pretty much just the product of his wingspan. But like I have seen him, like I was at a Kings Wolves game last year, and he destroyed Sabonis and the Kings on both ends of the court. Like they were posting him up, they were like running shit for him. And in that I saw like he's not necessarily skilled here, but like it is not nothing to like run an offense through a guy. Like the Boban counterexample I think here is very important. Like I think a lot of people just get mad because they think there's no skill involved, there's just physicality. But like there kind of is skill, I think, to even something as simple as like being willing to, fight to get in position 40 times a game and get hit and like make these little half hooks and stuff. Like I think there's not, like his game isn't bullshit, I think is my point.
No, I agree. And in fact, I think if Gobert's, what Gobert is best at, kind of from a holistic big picture standpoint, is playing to his strengths. Rudy Gobert does very little, except when he like gets post-up hungry or whatever, does something that he is not good at. He is pretty much like, I'm going to play this drop coverage. I'm going to try to block people's shot. I'm going to rotate and whatever. and on offense, I'm going to like set big screens and try to dunk. Like there's not, when's the last time Rudy took 3 dribbles that he didn't need to take? He keeps it within his extremely swag limited like universe of movements in a way that again makes him ruthlessly efficient and really boring and swagless.
Yeah.
Like
he's a better passer, I think, than he gets credit for. But every single pass he makes is like he gets it at the high post, someone takes a step too far, and it cuts from the wing. It's like very just like West Coast offense, extremely simple read and react stuff.
Right, exactly. And like almost perhaps the quality of his passing is more about like the willingness of his passing. Like he'll actually throw the pass. Like he's not, messing people up. What do you think then about like why all of these players like hate him so much?
I think the Shaq quote is like particularly instructive here because he frames it all as I made $120 million in my career and this guy's on a $250 million contract and I'm better than him. And I think that like basically what he's saying there is the modern NBA is degenerate and depraved. Whereas back in my day, we valued real hoopers. And now because of the computer, this guy who sucks is going to make twice as much as I ever did on this current contract. Like I think that is like the big element to it. And I think other players probably dislike him because they perceive him as soft. Like I kind of think it's just that simple.
That's the word that everybody throws out about him. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that he has this vulnerability to him and also is like clearly like when he punched Kyle Anderson last year, I think that was a pretty instructive window into like the Rudy Gobert experience. Like there's this kind of like barely contained control over his abilities that he has. Also, according to the McMahon profile, he, quote, often wears necklaces and rings that feature crystals and gems that supposedly possess healing powers and provide energy. And like that type of guy, I just think in an NBA locker room is going to be kind of clowned on, but especially if he's like being paid like a star.
Yeah. There's a funny, Draymond is another guy who really hates on him. Draymond is, I'm biased, but I love Draymond, but I know a lot of people, hate Draymond. Draymond and him are funny foils for each other because they both clearly feel undervalued, clawed their way into this incredible defensive prowess, are like defensive savants in their own way, and are like convinced that the other person is doing it wrong.
Yeah.
It's like they actually have way more in common than they should. It's like it's almost like a Jungian thing. Like they see the shadow self in each other, where Gobert probably looks at Draymond as like, I play basketball in this like spiritual, thoughtful kind of like pure way, whereas Draymond is this evil, emotional like fouler, and Draymond looks at Rudy Gobert and he's like, that guy is a pussy.
Yeah, and each possesses each player's like defining quality is like the one thing the other one lacks. Like Draymond, right, a tiny guy. Rudy doesn't have that dog in him. And they see in the other someone who is as effective as they are, but like in this totally different way, and they just are repulsed by it. I think the Jungian read is totally the right one here.
And there's also a kind of final irony here, which is that like in some insane scenario where Draymond and Rudy Gobert paired up and were a front court, it would be the number one defense in the history of basketball. It would be so good if Draymond could guard, quicker fours and Rudy could just help off and,
They would use each other as weapons, just like the way Draymond is so good at funneling people towards help, and Rudy is so good at just being a help eraser person. Like you would just be put in this like finger trap on every play. It would be kind of sick to watch. The last Rudy thing, and this is sort of like the perfect encapsulation of kind of like, I don't want to use the word tragedy because he's had a great career and I think he's going to be really good again next season. But like, it is kind of incredible that you have this tall string bean-esque French guy who's like limitations are as obvious as his talents, and it's like he's producing like an all-star, and then Victor Wembanyama of all people rolls around to become the best player in the NBA. It's like Gobert is like Wemby's Wario if Wario was like the first guy.
Exactly. No, it's true. And it just further shows in stark. It's almost like if somebody was like, well, this is what I would be if I was as tall as Rudy Gobert. And then you can be like, I would be this guy. And it points exactly to Wembanyama.
Yeah, like he was, and I think a lot of this too comes down to no rings and this perception, which I think is maybe accurate, that like he hasn't done anything in the playoffs. But like that Nuggets series last year, which I think was probably the best of the playoffs, which were kind of devoid of really great series. He was so good in that series last year. But even then, the one game he misses because he's witnessing the birth of his child is the one where the Wolves have this like all-time shit-kicking defensive performance where it's like where Jamal Murray freaks out, throws the ice pack, and it's like that happened without Gobert. And it's like that's such a perfect, addendum to his career of like great things happen around him and you can still point to him and be like, fuck that guy.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's tough. The final kind of French related thing I wanted to talk about is that not even in a point toward or against Rudy Gobert, but I was looking back at the kind of French NBA basketball players, and there are a lot of really fun, idiosyncratic French basketball players, including Wemby, and it's basically like Gobert is the bad egg from a swag perspective. Like Tony Parker was an incredibly kind of enigmatic, swaggy point guard. Boris Diaw, one of my favorite role players to watch ever. Just such a funny guy and such a beloved French guy. Everybody fucking loved that guy.
Everyone loves him because he is one of like, he has such real hooperness to him, but it's so effortless,
Completely. When I played in high school, there was a guy on this team called Stuart Hall, who I have no idea what his real name is, but his Facebook name was Silk Drizzle. And so everybody called him Silk Drizzle. And he was a pretty overweight, like point guard who was maybe like 5'11", overweight, and was just had an unbelievable smoothness to his game. Like, and watching Silk Drizzle like dominate the BCL West in the capacity that he did was so fun and like joyful, because it was like seeing a almost like a child in an adult's body kind of way. Like he had a gracefulness that he wasn't weighed down by the difficulties of adulthood in a certain way. And Gobert had fucking Boris Diaw had that way about him.
Imagine getting cheeky buckets with Smooth Drizzle. Wait, sorry, what was his name? Is it Smooth Drizzle?
Silk Drizzle.
Silk Drizzle. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be amazing. Yeah, but like...
all respect to Mr. Drizzle, yeah.
All respect. Like, Batum kind of has a cool game. Like, he knows exactly who he is. Yabusele, huge ass coming back to the NBA. That'll be fun next year.
Sixers Twitter was absolutely obsessed with Nick Batum. They like couldn't get enough of him passing the ball to Embiid.
I think a lot of that too is like Tobias Harris. Is he American Rudy Gobert?
Oh, 1,000%.
Like he's like kind of borked in the same way Gobert is. Where it's like he's extremely like talented and athletic, but there's like something kind of off about him, and it's like that offness in contrast to, again, like how much money he's made and how much he produces just gets people. I wonder if players respect him more. It seems like fans are the ones who really hate him, but maybe this is just because he played in Philly.
Well, he also complete guy who has nerd feet. Like that guy, every single layup he takes looks like it was an accident or looked like he got the chair pulled from under him. Like
maybe it's just that simple. Like it might just be the feet.
If you have nerd feet, yeah. But I get the sense he's a good teammate from like 15 minutes of a COVID vlog I watched. He seemed like a good dude.
Nice.
Shout out to him.
So I was going to say, speaking of Luka Doncic, and people Luka Doncic hates, we have to cover the big event of the week, not 9/11, but the presidential debate. And we're going to go now to our debate correspondent, Haralabob, Haralabos Vulgaris. Who is Haralabob?
One of the projects I'm sure we will engage on over the course of this podcast is tracking a kind of taxonomy of an NBA deep state. And Haralabob is a member of the NBA deep state.
Oh, absolutely.
He and a little bit less so now because he's almost like gone mainstream. Like he's almost like Bannon in that he like moved from the deep state to the MSM. Haralabob, came on my radar as like a podcast guest on old Bill Simmons pods, but then also this sort of early prolific NBA Twitter guy. He was kind of just like early on NBA Twitter. If I remember correctly, he like made a lot of money betting on. He ran a gambling model that made a lot of money by betting on teams with NBA players in a contract year, which is really funny and shows how far sports gambling has come. Because like if that can be your angle, like holy shit, there was a real market back then. Now it's like I don't even know what it is. I'm trying to win my fantasy basketball league this year, and I was looking at fantasy like API data sets that you can pull.
Oh,
and
wow.
like that is a whole cottage industry of gambling related API live updating data sets, so you can run like minute by minute models, so you can extract like
Wow.
Donovan Mitchell steals under arbitrage or whatever the fuck. So the fact that Haralabob was just being like, yeah, Josh Smith is gonna get buckets this year. He was in a contract year.
The only data you need for your fantasy league is 10, which is the number of toes on 2 feet, and then to see if they're nerd or regular. That's my analytics input there.
just no dorks. No, I mean that would fucking lose me. That's why I lose every year. It's because I pick hoopers, dude, and like my friends get fucking Rudy Gobert and stupid went 25 rebounds and beat me. But
we got Shaq over here. The other Haralabob gambling thing that a prolific gambler told me, this was like one of his big systems, how he made a lot of money. And like this is exactly like you said, this is the kind of inefficiency that doesn't exist anymore. He would basically look at that most gambling books would do the over-under and set that basically correctly, but then just divide it in half for the first half. And he noticed that teams consistently scored, like, I think it was more points in the second half. Maybe I have that backwards. And he would just bet first half unders big. And it was literally just that simple. And like, that's such a like easily extractable data point, especially in a sport like the NBA that's like so big where the odds are so correct. It's so funny to think of like anything that simple existing anymore. Like a lot of this is just right place, right time shit, which allows him to like, craft this persona as this oracle when really it's just like he was 5 years ahead of his time doing very simple shit.
Totally. And there's an element of, a lot of people have this kind of thing where if you were really ahead in this hyper progressive way, again, that's a little bit of right place, right time. I think you can start to get into this mindset where you're like, I am progressive and dark web pilled about everything. And then it's like, well, okay, maybe we don't need to, have fucking drone police. Like that we don't need that. You don't need to be 5 years ahead on that.
Yes.
It can be something else.
You can be right. It's okay to be right one time,
Right. It's just you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. But
that's facts.
So Haralabob. Then what parlayed? He was a prolific Twitter guy, gambler, and then eventually got a job with the Dallas Mavericks, which even at the time, and this shows how kind of quickly or the time frame of how a lot of this like analytic nerd shit sort of soured is like at the time when Haralabob got that job, I was very excited and curious about this. I was like, I wonder what this, he does at the very least seem to be this like progressive, outside the box thinker. And I should say, like, I mean, what we're about to get, Haralabob eventually just like says this insane thing about questioning a fact checker on whether or not Kamala Harris is black or not, which is like fucking so stupid. That kind of dumbass comment aside, I have to say I still am appreciative of him as like a total bizarre free thinker who has decided to think about basketball. Again, like I would like him to stick to sports, but
Yeah.
I still kind of appreciate like him as a figure, if not like I wouldn't want to be him to be my friend or whatever. But anyway, I bring this up because he took a job at the Mavericks, and then you can speak a little bit to this, but it went not as one would expect.
So the Mavericks at this point are like this famously, I guess now we know, toxic organization. Like there's all kinds of sexual harassment going on. Mark Cuban is the owner, and he seems to be a pretty bad boss, like running a pretty nasty org. Don Nelson Jr. has been the GM forever at this point, and Cuban just kind of hires Haralabob because he thinks he's like a fun, cool basketball internet guy, which like that kind of hire I think is like sort of rare and worth celebrating, that like you can just go like Sebastian Pruitt style from just getting these blogs off to like working in a front office. And there has been like a wave of these guys who get hired, but they're almost always like hardcore modeling, like Pruitt, Hollinger, Seth from The Athletic, like these guys who are basically just doing mathematical models that teams want in-house, but like in public. And Haralabob was like kind of an analytics guy, but he didn't post like one. Like he would just scream at people and get in fights, and like really he had like a poster's heart in a way that a lot of people don't.
Absolutely.
And so Cuban clearly is just enamored of him and brings him in. And pretty quickly he seizes like a frankly alarming amount of power. Like he's dictating lineups to Rick Carlisle. He personally drafts Josh Green, according to this Athletic story. And like the rest of the front office and their scouts are like, what the fuck? We can't, like, what are you doing? This is a bad idea. And he just kind of goes over their heads and grabs them. And Carlisle and Luka both start turning on him around 2020, 2021. He gets screamed at by Carlisle for working remote. And in his defense, he's like, well, I hate Dallas. I don't want to live there, which is like, why would you say that? So he runs afoul of Carlisle. He's just like, he's living life in this like very cloak and dagger, like backstabby NBA org, like a poster, which again, like if his posts were more normal, I think we could totally celebrate. But Luka gets mad at him a few times. One for leaving a blowout loss to the Knicks, like with that before the game ended. He says to go look at his computer, and Luka like calls him out and screams at him. Luka yells at him during a game once. And then he gets fired in 2021, right around when Luka signs the extension. I think, not that Luka said fire this guy, but I think Cuban kind of understood, like, okay, this guy's worth, he's more trouble than he's worth.
One of my favorite, like dumbass progressive, or like techno optimist moments of the this is actually a pre-Haralabob, but it's like the same thought that would like lead to hiring Haralabob, was Mark Cuban signed Wesley Matthews to a pretty big deal right after Wesley Matthews like blew his Achilles out, but then he still signed him, and Wesley was a pretty good 3-and-D guy at that point.
He was awesome.
Yeah, he was really good. And Mark Cuban was like, I am also investing in medical startups that are going to be able to fix his Achilles in like record time, and that's why we're getting him. And this is like a kind of a moment of brand synergy, and it just like obviously did not work. He did not fix his Achilles. He was a disaster for the Mavs. Not because because he fucking ruptured his Achilles. Like, what is he going to do? The medical startup didn't do anything, and it just went nowhere. But I just remember that, like, Mark Cuban saying that, and at the time, in real time, I was like, I don't know about that. Like, it doesn't seem like that's going to work, but that's an interesting, way to exploit, you are playing 3D chess here.
Do you remember Cyberdust?
Yes, I do remember Cyberdust.
I think it was Ramona Shelburne or one of the ESPN NBA people, as an aside on a podcast, said, if you want to communicate with Mark Cuban, you still have to use Cyberdust.
Oh my God.
He also signed Tony Romo to a 1-day deal and like let him sit on like how fucking mad would you be if you were just like the Dallas Mavericks, like if you're Rodrigue Beaubois and all of a sudden this like yokel retired football guy is like pretending like he's on the team like Drake in that Kentucky photo. Like that's God. That is not nothing but respect. That's actually disrespect.
It's true. And like, I don't know what Cuban is so funny. The what's it called? Pixie dust? What the fuck? Stardust?
Cyberdust. Which is like combination texting and like Twitter, basically.
Yeah, but then it was like super, talk about being ahead of his time. He was, that element of Cyberdust was ahead of its time in like totally stupid, kind of like techno-conservative passion projects of being like,
that's true.
That's basically this, like being like, actually the biggest problem that faces humanity right now is our texting isn't encrypted. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Well,
if he had the courage of his convictions, he could have invented like Rumble or whatever. Like it's like a half step away from that.
Right. And what clearly, again, speaking of spiritual through line, what these techno-conservatives got wrong is they didn't realize that in 5 years, nobody would care if you leaked your dick on the internet.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that's encrypted because you'll just get on a pod with Chad Ochocinco and he'll be like, you're out of breath, hunk.
they weren't acceleration. They weren't in their accelerationist bag deep enough. It seems
exactly. They were barking up the wrong tree.
And so one wonders, gambler, analytics guy turned forbidden NBA truth teller who's drummed out of the league. Yeah, like what kind of politics would that guy develop? And every single person right now is probably just screaming cryptocurrency. And of course, Haralabob is a huge, I think he got like actually very rich off of crypto. And like he has the same sort of politics that any of these guys do, where it's like, it's almost a denatured, unspecific libertarianism that just boils down to do not fuck with crypto. Nothing, like I don't give a fuck about anything else. And so of course he would get mad at someone like CNN fact checker Daniel Dale, except like, because it's him, he takes it to this other super weird level where like his take here is that Kamala isn't quite black, and also that Daniel Dale as a Canadian is not allowed to fact check on CNN, which he posts in back-to-back tweets.
It's such a strange take from Haralabob because the take is Daniel Dale. The whole thing is sort of like ridiculous, right? Which is like there's at some point J.D. Vance, I guess, insinuated that Kamala Harris wasn't black, which is like fucking so stupid. And then the CNN fact checking crew explodes and takes this really stupid comment really seriously, almost in a stupid way, being like, it is empirically clear that Kamala Harris is black. And it's like, yes, Kamala Harris is black. Maybe we can just move on and talk about something that is more essential to the debate. The fact checker, they like goes on this long Twitter thread, which is whatever his prerogative, and about being like, Kamala Harris is black. Here's proof that she's black. And then Haralabob is like, comes in out of nowhere and is just like, yes, I agree that debating whether or not Kamala Harris is black is silly. However,
but he accuses him of cosplaying as an unbiased fact checker when he's omitting the following info. From age 12 to 17, Kamala lived in the community of Westmont, Quebec, a very lovely, well to upper class area, I may add. Okay. We need a fact check on that, which was approximately 1 to 2% black during the 5 years she lived there. Unclear what relevance that has to the debunking that Dale was doing.
It's like he took 20 steps down his own moronic logic in his head and like forgot to fill us in there. Yeah, because I guess the point he's making is if Kamala for 5 years in her youth lived in a place where there weren't a lot of black people, which you are black if you live with black people, and ipso facto, because Kamala didn't live with enough black people, she's not black.
But
That's the only interpretation I can make.
He's not even really saying she's not black either. Like to me, I read this tweet as basically a extremely opaque, indirect way to brag that he's hung out in Westmont, Quebec, and knows what it's like. Like that's the only real truth being expressed here. Also, that Daniel Dale is Canadian, which again, the last person we'll close on is Canadian, and his Canadianness I think does preclude him from getting these takes off. But like, whether or not Kamala is black is like not something you have to be like an American to have, be able to say the truth on.
Right, to be able to like read 6 New York Times articles and post about it. It was so, the whole thing was so weird. The funniest part of the whole thing was Daniel Dale's response, which makes me think of two things. One, the response to Daniel Dale was, he does kind of like own Haralabob. He like
he wins.
Like sends like 5 unambiguous examples of him being black, of Kamala Harris being black, because fucking obviously. But Daniel Dale goes, "Wow, Haralabob insult. I have listened to you on so many podcasts, read so many tweets and blog posts about your relationship with Luka Doncic. Anyway, here's," and then goes on to the whole thing, which it makes me think 2 things. One, shout out to Daniel Dale, very funny post. We can all,
yeah, it's very good.
Respect. And then 2, further proof in my mind that Kamala Harris probably should go on the Bill Simmons podcast, because it is clear that the Bill Simmons effect reaches the highest levels of government and media. If Daniel Dale is like sitting in his Georgetown bedroom being like, "Guess the lines." What?
To your Haralabob NBA deep state theory, here's the first line of his latest tweet. "Asked a good friend of mine who works at the FBI to confirm this." Come on, man. You can't be saying that. You got to keep your cover.
Yeah, seriously. All right. Well, speaking of something we've been talking about all day has been a conflict between sabermetrics and narratives, right?
Yeah.
And one good place to end is King's, fellow Michigan, somebody that brings us together, fellow Michigan Wolverine legend and King's not exactly legend, Nick Stauskas, also had some stuff to say about the debate. What could you have the Stauskas tweet in front of you?
"As an avid investor in mostly American companies, I was hoping they would address some of Harris's plans to tax unrealized gains in the stock market and overall raise the capital gains tax from 20 to 28%. Of course, ABC didn't get to that. Facepalm emoji." A couple things to note here. One, anyone who identifies themselves first and foremost as an investor and is like posting about it on Twitter is not good at investing. B, like Daniel Dale and Kamala Harris from ages 12 to 17, Nick Stauskas is like Canadian. He is from Canada. I don't know if he's a citizen or not, whatever. You can be an investor, but also like he doesn't even go here.
Right. It's like it's well, and then the other thing that's important about this is that the taxing the unrealized capital gains is not gonna happen. Like it's like a totally insane, almost like meme. It's like so whatever.
It feels totally fake. He later goes on and replies to say, even guys like Mark Cuban who support Harris have publicly said that policy would single-handedly destroy the stock market / economy. I mean, this is the first time hearing of this. This is because from what I know about the stock market / economy is they're important and part of our lives. Is that facts?
That's a big facts. That's really important. One of the reasons Nick Stauskas couldn't figure it out in Sacramento is because the stock market was down and he was concerned about that. He
was playing in the recession era, wasn't he?
Yeah. Listen, if I don't believe that Nick Stauskas is a Trump supporter at all, but I do think that his bucket percentage could have gone up if there was a little bit more of a bear market.
Yeah, that's true. He was sort of in the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, I think about like an actual NBA investor is like, I think of Andre Iguodala, who basically was just on the Warriors during the tech boom. And that's like why he has the public persona he has now. And unfortunately, Stauskas was on some of the most diarrheal Kings teams of all time during a pretty bad phase for the economy. And also, like, the thing with Stauskas that I'll never be able to get out of my head is Vivek Ranadive allowed Grantland to film the draft where they picked Stauskas. And there's, like, video footage of the owner, like, personally making the pick and saying that he has size like Clay and shoots like Steph.
Oh, God.
And he is the guy guarding Clay during the 37-point quarter a few years later, of course.
Oh, my God. I did not realize that. That's so funny. Yeah, I mean, I got to say, I thought Nick was good. Stauskas was going to be good in the NBA. You know, the stories of him getting bullied by Boogie Cousins were something I remember. I like the notion of him, like, being like, you know how I'm going to get Boogie Cousins back? I am going to grow my wealth to 12x. Yeah. It's like there's going to be some story in like 12 years of Boogie Cousins like coming to Nick and being like, teach me how to do online trading. And Nick is going to like his like 7 rigs set up and he's like, step into my office, Boogie.
You know who also was a famous NBA investor who posted about it all the time is John T. Porter. So, to bring us back to gambling, this is like not a type of guy you want to be. Just like the NBA and like the put upon investor person who happened to make like a couple $1 million by just getting drafted in the first round, like to then open a Robinhood account, but then brand yourself as like, I'm right, I'm an investor. And it's like we said earlier, it's okay to just be right. It's okay to have made $10 million in the NBA and like, that's a great life. You don't have to be a smart guy. It's fine.
Right. You can even just make millions investing by being like cool and having people want to put you on their investor team so they can put a screenshot and put you on their board. Like, don't do it by knowing about computers.
Yeah, it's not okay to know about computers.
The last thing on this I'll read is that there was a great random Michigan State reply guy who just hit Michigan, hit Stauskas with a very good post-own, which was, the American taxpayer has subsidized you substantially, and you couldn't guard a table. Which is like, damn, dude, respect.
I wonder, did the American taxpayer? Oh, he played on the Celtics 2 years ago. 6 games, the 21-22 Boston Celtics. That is, I thought he would have been out of the league way before that.
I weirdly knew that because I was producing an episode of the Duncan Robinson podcast where they did 5 to 7 minutes on I believe Nick Stauskas recently had like around that time in 2021 had a like a 50 burger for the Wichita Mad Ants.
Oh wow.
That people were hyped about.
Okay, yeah.
So Duncan gave him a shout out on that podcast.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like 30 now. Let's see. I wonder how much money do you I guess it's in that Twitter thread, but I'm going to guess he made $16 million. That's not bad.
Not bad at all for a kid from Ontario or wherever.
Yeah,
he's from.
for a Michigan alum, it's not bad.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, definitely outside of outshoots the 5-year earnings of a history major for sure. All right, I think that's all we got on the docket today. Any final? I wanted to. You sent me this all time, which any basketball head should know about this. This great Toby. What's his name?
Keith Pompey?
Keith Pompey, yeah, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I almost call him Toby Keith, the singer. Had the 9/11, had an unbelievable remembering 9/11 post where he seamlessly pivots from remembering 9/11 to a DirecTV commercial, which is iconic.
With like, this is a pretty compelling counterpoint against the idea of a segue. Like, not everything has to be like, sometimes 9/11 and like, the great deals that DirecTV are offering, those can be separate things. Like, they don't have to flow into each other. But you know what? Nothing but respect for making that attempt.
Absolutely. And my one 9/11 story I have relating to media is I was about 5 years ago, I applied for a job at Condé Nast, and I go in the One World Trade, which is where the Condé offices are in the heart of downtown New York. I do the interview. The interview goes fine, whatever. After the interview, the woman who interviewed me is like, "Hey, what are you doing the rest of the day?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to get a coffee. Like, I got to just go relax." And what I am then trying to say to her is, this was a stressful, job. The interview, like this Condé Nast is such a historic institution. I'm can't believe I'm here. Basically, what comes out of my mouth is, yeah, well, what with the history of this building, it was just nerve-wracking.
Wow, you never forgot.
She just like stops for a second and looks at me and is like, okay. And I'm like, oh my God, I just told this woman that I'm scared 9/11's going to happen again. And that's why I need to go to Blue Bottle.
Do you think they would have given you the job, but they're like, I don't know, he's going to be thinking about 9/11 like a lot. Like, I don't know. It's another, do you think that maybe that happens a lot? Maybe like, another one of these people who's never forgotten.
Yeah, I wonder. Like they were like, yeah, he's too woke or something for us. Like
I remember this is. Do you remember when Halsey got a bad review and was like, someone should do something about the Pitchfork offices? And it's like, is she calling for a second 9/11?
Iconic, yeah.
Great post.
Well, now we've got another one for the books this year with Joe Biden being like, tomorrow I'm gonna do 9/11.
That's great. He just said it.
Yeah. Good for him.
All right.
Well, listen, subscribe, like, send it to your friends. We're using Substack to host this podcast, so that doesn't that can not matter to you at all. You can just subscribe regular, or you can subscribe and I think we'll send you emails. So do it however you want.
Yeah, we'll send you emails. That's a promise, not a threat.
Yeah, exactly. All right.